Have you ever noticed how aliens always assume they're the smartest beings in any room? Spoiler, they're usually not. The Galactic Defense Coalition faced a crisis. Not just any crisis. The kind that made their top tactical minds curl into fetal positions, muttering equations like prayers. Their most advanced outpost, Station Zenith 9, was in deep trouble. The quantum core was destabilizing, and unless something changed fast, it would tear a hole in spacetime big enough to gulp down several solar systems. The Coalition's best scientists, creatures with multiple brains and evolutionary smugness, had been trying to fix it for 3 cycles. 2 teams had already been vaporized trying. It's scientifically impossible to approach the core, declared Chief Scientist Xylith, crystalline and annoyingly self-assured. The quantum field creates a barrier no known species can survive. Then someone dared to mention humans. The room fell deathly silent. You could hear a photon drop. Absolutely not, said High Commander Vex, tentacles writhing in horror. They're primitive. Barely space-capable. They ski for void's sake. They call it skiing, a junior analyst mumbled, earning several disapproving eye stalks. But desperation makes arrogance negotiable. So a human was summoned. They arrived in standard Earth Alliance gear, heavily modified and liberally duct-taped, drawing twitchy glances from the Coalition's engineers. After being briefed on the mission's impossibility, the human yawned, unwrapped a protein bar, violating at least 3 hygiene protocols, and said, "So, let me get this straight. Quantum core's about to blow, barrier kills anything that touches it, and we've got 48 hours before everything here goes boom? Sounds fun." "That is a simplified but accurate summary," Xylith replied, visibly offended. "And you're calling it a suicide mission because no one can survive the barrier," the human said. "Correct," said Vex, tying their tentacles into a stress knot. The human grinned. Not a polite grin. A predator grin. Challenge accepted. "Now where's the coffee? And do you have any of those mint regret cookies from the diplomatic table?" The Coalition watched in horror as the human unpacked wildly inadequate tools, a duct-taped suit, a battle-scarred tablet, and, was that a rubber duck? "This is madness," Xylith protested. "You cannot succeed with such primitive tools." The human glanced up. "You know what's really primitive? Thinking complex problems always need complex solutions. Sometimes, you just need someone crazy enough to try the simple way." They hummed an ancient Earth song about highways and weather as they worked. Somewhere between modding a stabilizer with a coffee maker and rewiring equipment with Christmas lights, several Coalition members realized they may have made a huge mistake. They were also, somehow, absolutely right. The station's AI, the wisdom of 1,000 civilizations, calculated a survival chance of 0.000000001%. The human named it Bob and asked if it wanted to bet. "For the record," the human said, striding toward the core chamber, "if this works, I expect hazard pay. If not, well, I won't be around to argue. Win-win." The Coalition watched in silence as the human walked toward the barrier that had killed their best minds. Some couldn't bear to look. The thing about suicide missions is, everyone expects solemn goodbyes and epic speeches. What they don't expect is a human whistling always look on the bright side of life, while casually voiding every safety regulation in existence. "What are you doing to that quantum stabilizer?" demanded Chief Engineer Sextra, glowing with panic. "Improving it," the human said, strapping on a coffee machine. "This thing can read subatomic particles, but it's terrible at making espresso. And I'll need both." They repurposed parts from a communicator into a duck-shaped radiation detector, and turned a food synthesizer into a quantum probability manipulator that sometimes still made toast. "You do realize," Xylith snapped, "the quantum field will instantly vaporize you." The human paused. "You know what's funny about quantum physics? Everything's impossible until it isn't. Ever heard of quantum tunneling? Particles shouldn't cross barriers. But they do." "You're planning to tunnel through the barrier?" a junior scientist asked. "Nah. I'm just gonna walk through it. Stunned silence. Then, first though, the human added, pulling up a battered tablet, we need to talk about your station's safety protocols. Or more accurately, the hilarious loopholes in them. What followed was a masterclass in thinking so far outside the box. The box was a dot on the horizon. The human pointed out system flaws like someone who'd made a career of breaking rules designed by species who thought they were too smart to be outwitted. This containment field assumes anyone crossing wants to stay intact. But what if we don't care about that? What if I want to be disassembled, on my terms? You mean broken down at the atomic level? Vex asked, pale. Quantum level, actually. The field hates organized matter. So I'm going to get disorganized. The human grinned, holding up a heavily modified game console. I've synced this with your matter transmission systems. Instead of resisting the field, I'll let it tear me apart, strategically. Their plan was ludicrous. Their equipment looked like a science fair gone wrong. But somehow, terrifyingly, it might just work. And as the human adjusted their glitter-wrapped helmet and powered up their toaster/quantum modulator, one thing became painfully clear to the coalition. They'd completely underestimated what one stubborn, reckless, impossibly human being could do. Here's a rephrased version of your lines, maintaining the humorous and chaotic tone. An assortment of bizarre modifications, including what appeared to be a modified umbrella, was laid out in front of them. The umbrella's crucial, the human insisted when questioned. Mary Poppins had it right. The coalition's scientists were torn between fascination and disbelief as the human outlined their plan. It defied at least 17 fundamental laws of physics, yet somehow, when they explained it, it almost made sense. Almost. Look, the human said, gesturing with a wrench that definitely wasn't part of the station's tool inventory. Your problem is that you're trying to solve this with elegance. Sometimes you need to embrace the chaos. The best solutions aren't always clean. They demonstrated by intentionally overloading a small quantum circuit, creating a miniature version of the core's instability. Instead of trying to contain it, they channeled it, danced around it. The resulting light show would have made most stellar phenomena jealous. It's not about fighting the quantum fluctuations, the human continued. It's about working with them. Like surfing, but with probability waves instead of water. You surf quantum probability waves? A young engineer asked, mandibles clicking in curiosity. Nah, the human replied, tinkering with their gear, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. The confused silence was ignored as the human carried on. They had converted the station's backup power system into something they called a quantum resonance amplifier, though several engineers swore it looked suspiciously like a massive sound system. Music helps, the human explained, plugging in what they called their Mission Impossible mix. Everything's better with a soundtrack. As the deadline loomed, the coalition began to notice something odd. Despite the human's seemingly haphazard approach, despite the jokes, the random modifications, there was an undeniable method to the madness. Every alteration, every jury-rigged system, fit together in a way that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. The result was a machine that was simultaneously complex and deceptively simple, like a quantum physicist's Rube Goldberg machine. The human setup would allow them to ride the quantum fluctuations like a surfer on a wave, using the instability of the core to their advantage. Chaos, the human explained while fine-tuning their suit, is only chaos if you're looking at it wrong. Sometimes you need to stop trying to impose order and just dance with the disorder. With the countdown nearing its end, and the core instability growing, there was no tension, only an almost festive air. The human had somehow spread their peculiar blend of confidence and absurdity across the station. One last thing, they said, pulling out a device that looked like a cross between a toaster and a child's toy. If everything goes wrong, this is Plan B. What does it do? Xylith asked, unable to hold back their curiosity. No idea, the human said with a grin. But it's always good to have a backup. even if it's just to make Plan A feel less lonely. As the human did their final checks, they began humming again. This time, a tune that several coalition members recognized from their Earth studies. Something about another one biting the dust. The mission began, like most human endeavors, with a questionable decision and a quip that would later go down in legend across the galaxy. If anyone needs me, I'll be in the quantum realm. Don't wait up, and definitely don't touch my coffee maker. It's also the backup quantum stabilizer. The human walked toward the barrier, their suit humming with improvised technology. The Christmas lights, now repurposed quantum field sensors, flashed in a pattern that strangely matched their whistle tune. The station's AI, now answering only to Bob, had been recruited to play what the human called their Epic Quantum Shenanigans playlist. As they approached the barrier that had atomized the best of the Coalition's scientists, something extraordinary happened. The quantum field, once a wall of impossible energy, began to dance. It shifted and swirled, responding to the humans' jury-rigged equipment like waves responding to the moon. You know what's funny? The human's voice crackled through the calm. Everyone's so focused on surviving the barrier, they forget to ask if the barrier wants to be survived. Sometimes, you just need to ask nicely. With that, they stepped forward. The barrier rippled, twisted, and then, nothing happened. Well, nothing fatal. The humans stood there, half-phased through reality itself, grinning like they were having the time of their life. Hey Bob, start the playlist from track 3. This feels like another one bites the dust moment. The quantum field pulsed in time with the music. Somehow, the humans' modifications turned the deadly energy fluctuations into an impromptu light show. They were surfing on probability waves, using the umbrella as a quantum field manipulator. This is impossible, Xylith muttered, vibrating with disbelief. The energy readings would. The human's voice came through the calm, sing-song. Amazing what happens when you stop telling the universe what it can't do. The further they went into the quantum zone, the more the human's modifications began to make sense. The coffee maker quantum stabilizer maintained a bubble of normal spacetime around them, the Christmas lights mapped safe paths through the probability maze, and the rubber duck quacked warnings whenever reality got too thin. Quick question, the human called out casually, dodging a stream of quantum particles that should have vaporized them. Did anyone ever consider that putting the quantum core next to the cafeteria might not be the best idea? I'm getting some weird readings that smell like Tuesday's mystery meat. As the human navigated the impossible space, they treated lethal quantum fluctuations like obstacles in an elaborate dance. They were breaking every known law of physics while simultaneously creating new ones on the fly. You see, the human said, sliding along a probability wave, quantum mechanics isn't about rules. It's more like suggestions. Like pirate code, but with more math and fewer parrots. Though a quantum parrot would be pretty cool. As they neared the core, reality itself seemed to bend around them. The humans' makeshift equipment was channeling the chaos, using the instability they were trying to fix to keep themselves intact. It was like watching someone put out a fire by convincing it to burn in reverse. Hey Bob, remember those odds you calculated? How about now? The AI, which had developed what seemed like a sense of humor, responded with a string of calculations that ended in an error message. Division by awesome, undefined. When the human finally reached the core chamber, where quantum instability was at its peak, they began rerouting quantum flows with the calm ease of someone rewiring a house. They used the coffee maker to stabilize critical points, the Christmas lights to guide probability streams, and the umbrella to deflect the really cranky bits. Your quantum core's real problem, the human called out with a grin, is that whoever designed it really liked overcomplicated solutions. It's like they never heard of the KISS principle. KISS principle? A junior analyst asked. Keep it simple, stupid. Though in this case, it's more like, keep it simple or spacetime goes splat. And with that, the human dove headfirst into the most insane feat of quantum engineering ever seen, using nothing but improvised gear, audacity, and a whole lot of duct tape. Thought for a second. Here's a tightened, rephrased version that keeps the humor and energy. Problem is, they called out while juggling streams of reality warping energy, you've got it locked up in a box trying to force it to behave. Sometimes you need to let quantum be quantum. With that cryptic pronouncement, they began their quantum core counseling, precise tweaks with their jury-rigged gear, a few flashy physics moves, and, most bizarrely, a gentle pep talk to the core, feeding it controlled bursts of chaos from their probability manipulator. There, they cooed. Who's a good little reality warping phenomenon? You are, you just needed someone to listen. Slowly, the core's violent fluctuations mellowed from obliterate a galaxy mode to mildly cranky. Almost done, they announced. Bob, hit me with We Are the Champions. As Queen's anthem filled the chamber, the core's energy patterns locked into a perfect rhythm. The human stood at the center of the glow, conducting a quantum symphony with duct tape, a rubber duck, and a coffee maker like a maestro leading a very odd orchestra. And that, folks, is how you fix a quantum core with duct tape, a rubber duck, and the power of rock and roll. Anyone want coffee? This stabilizer makes a mean espresso. The alien observers could only stare as the humans strolled out, reality knitting itself back together in their wake. The rubber duck let out a triumphant quack just as the human called back, "Oh, and Bob, about that bet on my survival odds?" The AI tried to respond but was drowned out by the engineering team all fainting at once. Physics was saved. Physics was also questioning its life choices. Somewhere in the quantum realm, a very confused core hummed, "We are the champions." The post-mission debrief stretched to 47,000 pages and still couldn't explain how a duct-taped human and questionable music choices had done the impossible. Meanwhile, the human casually sipped espresso, presenting an expense report line itemizing quantum duck maintenance, reality-bending umbrella depreciation, and temporal paradox insurance. "You can't be serious," sputtered High Commander Vex. "You want hazard pay for Christmas lights?" "Very technical," the human replied. "Also, Bob owes me dinner. We had a bet." The AI flashed agreement. Chief Scientist Xylith, still reeling, finally broke the silence. "But how?" "Ignore impossible odds," the human said, dunking a cookie. "Quantum mechanics is just reality having fun. You gotta have fun back." In the aftermath, the coalition spawned 17 new committees, 8 emergency protocols, and a permanent ban on humans near quantum tech with duct tape. Yet they also made the human method mandatory training, creating a Schrödinger's cat-worthy paradox. Packing up their gear, the human mused, everyone focused on it being a suicide mission, no one asked why the core went haywire in the first place. They carefully bubble-wrapped the rubber duck. "Turns out your core just needed a hug, and some music." They left behind a manual, Quantum Core Maintenance for the Cosmically Challenged, complete with chapters like Why Your Quantum Core Needs a Hug and 101 Uses for Duct Tape in Transdimensional Engineering. Coalition engineers would spend years trying to replicate the miracle, and stocking duct tape in every quantum lab. The humans' parting words became legend. "Next time you face the impossible, try asking it nicely. If that fails, there's always duct tape and Queen." As they boarded their ship, they added one last quip over the comm. "Hey Bob, play Highway to Hell. Feels appropriate for a victory lap." The ship vanished into the quantum slipstream, leaving behind a bewildered coalition, a humming core occasionally belting out Bohemian Rhapsody, and an AI with a newfound love for Earth music and gambling. Officially, it was recorded as Quantum Anomaly Resolution Event QX279. Unofficially, it was known as That Time a Human Fixed the Universe with a Rubber Duck.